In this video, I want to recap the issues surrounding Justin's statement, which amillennialists believe is a reference to Orthodox amillennialists in his day. I want to cover the issues quickly again and add the testimony from Tertullian, and hopefully you'll see how this renders the statement from Justin useless as any help for amillennialism. And Trypho to this replied, "I remark to you, sir, that you are very anxious to be safe in all respects, since you cling to the Scriptures. But tell me, do you really admit that this place, Jerusalem, shall be rebuilt? And do you expect your people to be gathered together and made joyful with Christ and the patriarchs and the prophets, both the men of our nation and other proselytes who joined them before your Christ came? Or have you given way and admitted this in order to have the appearance of worsting us in the controversies?" Then I answered, "I am not so miserable a fellow, Trypho, as to say one thing and think another. I admitted to you formerly that I and many others are of this opinion, and believe that such will take place, as you assuredly are aware. But, on the other hand, I signified to you that many who belong to the pure and pious faith, and are true Christians, think otherwise. Moreover, I pointed out to you that some who are called Christians, but are godless and impious heretics, teach doctrines that are in every way blasphemous, atheistical, and foolish. But that you may know that I do not say this before you alone, I shall draw up a statement, so far as I can, of all the arguments which have passed between us, in which I shall record myself as admitting the very same things which I admit to you. For I choose to follow not men or men's doctrines, but God and the doctrines delivered by him. For if you have fallen in with some who are called Christians, but who do not admit this truth, and venture to blaspheme the God of Abraham, and the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob, who say there is no resurrection of the dead, and that their souls, when they die, are taken to heaven, do not imagine that they are Christians, even as one, if he would rightly consider it, would not admit that the Sadducees and so forth are Jews. Do not hear me impatiently when I tell you what I think, but are only called Jews and children of Abraham, worshipping God with the lips, as God himself declared, but the heart was far from him. But I and others, who are right-minded Christians on all points, are assured that there will be a resurrection of the dead, and 1,000 years in Jerusalem, which will then be built, adorned, and enlarged, as the prophets Ezekiel and Isaiah and others declare." That's Justin Martyr, Dialogue with Trypho the Jew, chapter 80, and this is the Roberts Donaldson translation. And basically, amillennialists see three groups here, and let's take a look at them real quick. I and many others are of this opinion, and believe that such will take place. They think that would mean Justin is referring to himself and other premillennialists who believe that premillennialism will take place. Then the second group here, many who belong to the pure and pious faith and are true Christians, think otherwise. Amillennialists think this is a reference to Orthodox Christians who disagree with premillennialism. All right? And the third group, some who are called Christians but are godless, impious heretics, teach doctrines that are in every way blasphemous, atheistical, and foolish. And this would refer only to Gnostics then. So that's a third group there. So again, here's the three groups that they see in this passage. And group number 2 there is the one they would believe refers to Orthodox amillennialists living in the days of Justin Martyr. But as I pointed out in the previous video, the dispute in question is whether Jerusalem will be the capital, and this would mean Justin is merely referring to Montanism, the Montanists, who believe the capital would be in Phrygia rather than Jerusalem. You see this in Trypho's question, and you see it in Justin's answer. So this is a reference to Montanism and not Orthodox amillennialism. You need to keep in mind that Montanism actually did exist in Justin's time. And one of the times given that people think Montanus gave his revelations would be about 155 A.D. But it doesn't matter anyway, because we know that manuscripts contain a word "not" that has been suppressed in other manuscripts, and we even know that the Greek is awkward without this word "not" included. As Professor Brooks says in his book Elementals on Prophetic Interpretation, the extract just given from Justin is as literally translated from the Greek as I can give it. 2 parenthetical sentences only being left out that in no way affect the argument. The translator into Latin of the Parisian edition of Justin's works labors hard to give a sense which may comport with the omission of the word "not," but it is in several instances not justified by the Greek. It is amusing also to observe how puzzled the translator is in his notes to account for obscurities which appear in his translation, and how astonished he is at the harshness of Irenaeus for going further than Justin apparently does in this matter, and condemning those as heretics who were not millenarians, whereas they actually both do the same thing. In Part 2, we'll look at the translation of Justin with the "not" included in the text, and see how this alters the meaning.